You are a whole being. So oftentimes we are acting from a perspective of being a fragmented being. We identify as fragments. So now I'd like to guide you to have an actual direct experience of what I've been describing theoretically, because this is where the rubber meets the road. This is where you can actually start to understand this and then translate this into actual results in your life. So for this, I'm going to your presence is necessary. So ideally, you want to be in circumstances that allow you to be fully present to yourself and to your direct experience. So if you are like driving a car right now, then I don't recommend that you do this exploration because this exploration requires your full presence in order to really get the results. If you are in an environment where you can give your full presence to your actual direct experience, then I invite you to choose that. So your intention is extraordinarily powerful. Just choose to be fully present to yourself right now for the duration of this exploration, which will be 5, maybe 10 minutes. If you can put yourself into some situation that allows you to be reasonably comfortable, that would be ideal. If you can be upright and comfortable, that would be great. By discomfort. Sometimes, and I'm making this point just because sometimes people think, oh, the only way that I can do this kind of exploration is if I sit in lotus pose on a hard floor. And if if that works for you, great. I mean, that the reason people traditionally do that is because it's very supportive. But the problem is it takes a lot of practice in order to be able to do that comfortably. And if you have not practiced to do that comfortably, it will be very uncomfortable for you. So it's much better just to be comfortable. And so you can have success doing this sitting on a couch, sitting on a bed, sitting on a chair. And if it's comfortable, close the eyes. And the reason for closing the eyes is just because it will, again, reduce some of that unnecessary stimulation and it will make it easier for you to be more present instead of being distracted by all of that other stimulation. If it's not comfortable for you to close the eyes, then you needn't do so. But it's just the idea here is just that it can be supportive. So now observe your actual experience and notice right now that you are hearing. So notice that that hearing is taking place. And notice that that hearing is occurring in you. So the actual direct experience should be or is that the hearing is taking place in you. It's not taking place outside of you. As a mental construct, we can certainly believe or think that hearing is taking place outside because we can argue that the sounds are taking place externally. But as an actual direct experience, independent of any thinking about it, but just the actual direct experience, it should be totally obvious that the hearing is taking place right here, right now, absolutely intimately, at no distance, completely in you. So just notice that. And then notice that the sound is always coming and going. There's always movement. There's always change. It's never always the same. So we're noticing that hearing and sound are taking place subjectively, internally, here and now, not at a distance, absolutely intimately, and that its nature is change. And then notice the uh, sensations or feeling that is occurring. And notice that the feeling, the sensation, is also occurring within you, absolutely intimately, not at a distance. So, as a mental construct, it may seem intellectually that the sensations or feeling is somehow external. It may seem that it is representing something outside of you. For example, if you are sitting on something, there may be sensations that you register as symbolizing something underneath you. And so you're it's possible that there may be some thought that says the sensation is happening external to me. But if you just pay attention to the direct experience, you'll notice that the feeling, the sensation is actually happening not outside of you, but it's happening just directly and intimately here and now within you. And that it's just pure feeling, it's pure sensation, and it's not actually an object. It's not actually the thing that you think it is, it's just the feeling. And then notice that that feeling or sensation is also characterized by movement or change. So it's not a constant thing that's unchanging, but it's characterized by change and movement. So change in movement may be slow change in movement or fast change in movement, but it's not constant. There's movement, there's variation. Now, with the eyes closed, the amount of visual stimulation should be reduced, but it's not entirely eliminated. So there's still some registering of some kind of visual sense, and you could notice that. So you might notice there might be internal images, or there might just be impression of light, which the brain might say is happening through the eyelids, but nonetheless, it's happening. There's some sense of some kind of imagery, even if it's subdued, it's there. And so you can notice that whether we call it imagining or visualization or visual data, the seeing is taking place intimately here now within you. So again, this is an exploration of the direct experience, just to notice what's actually happening prior to any thought about it, independent of any mental construct, just to notice that there is a pure seeing that is occurring, and that that seeing is taking place not at a distance, but right now, right here. And then also notice that this seeing is also characterized by change and movement. So it's not constant. The change might be slow or it might be fast, but it's not constant. There's not a constant occurrence. It's changing. So we could do the same exploration with taste and smell, but for now, I will leave that to you. It's the same basic exploration, just to notice that those things are also occurring subjectively, and that they're happening internally here now, not at a distance. So then you can perhaps notice that apart from seeing, feeling, tasting, smelling, and hearing, is there any other is there any other content? Is there anything else that you can be aware of except what can be perceived through these five senses? And hopefully you will notice that there is nothing apart from what can be perceived through these five senses. However, even though there's there's nothing that can be uh, discovered or found apart from what can be perceived through the five senses, there remains you as that which is aware. So that which is aware cannot be tasted, cannot be touched, cannot be seen, cannot be heard, cannot be smelled, because it's not content, but it can at the very least be inferred. So if you're trying to feel it or taste it or see it or touch it or any of these things, then it won't work. But it can at the very least be inferred. So all of the content, all the sensory information is characterized by movement, by change. It's coming and going. So it appears and disappears. And that's obviously a visual reference, but we could apply that across all of the other senses, this sense of coming and going, emerging and re uh, merging back into something like waves rising and falling. So then the question is, where's all this coming from and going to? And if you just carefully observe, and this is really the invitation that Ramana extended, it's possible to notice that all of the content, if you just observe it carefully enough, you'll see that it emerges from nothing and then it returns to nothing. So the same nothing, which is inferred to be that changeless source, which must be your truest or highest or most fundamental point of view, turns out to be the same source of all of the content. So the content is emerging out of this same nothing and then returning to the same nothing. So this tells us now something we can actually directly observe the actual structure of ourselves. If we pay attention, we can notice that there is a fundamental source, which is nothing. It's not a thing, cannot be observed through the five senses, and that all of the other content can be understood as through these five senses, and that it is all emerging from the same nothing and returning to the same nothing. So this is a direct experience. Don't necessarily try and grasp it with your thinking mind. Just notice it, just allow it. And then when you do feel ready to transition to an open-eyed state, that is assuming that you have your eyes closed, then I invite you to do that slowly. And there's no hurry to do so. If you're enjoying keeping your eyes closed, feel free to do so. But if and when you would like to open the eyes, please do so slowly so that you can integrate this whole experience, because there's a lot of uh, data that comes online for most of us when we open the eyes. So opening the eyes slowly allows you to integrate that so you can remain aware that all of this visual data is also happening here now. It's so the illusion that usually takes place is with all of that visual information, we start thinking, oh, I'm this separate thing existing in this larger context. It gives rise to that illusion. But if you actually just do this slowly, remaining continuously aware, you can notice that all of this visual data is still occurring here now subjectively within you. It's not separate from you. It's still in the same space of self that you are. So again, the habit is with eyes open to more strongly associate with this point in space, with this body, and to say, I am this and I'm separate from that. But if you've really been paying attention, then you'll be able to notice that that's just an illusion, because the actual direct experience is that all of this is still happening here now in this space of awareness that you are.